Coming up, a Sad Styles production. Get into it!
Earthworm Jim.
Yep.
Two very plain-ass names.
Yep.
Mushed together.
Human Mikey.
You calling me a human is the nicest thing you've ever done for me.
That's true. Yeah.
It's usually Gap mannequin Mikey. Coldplay fan forever Mikey.
Child's nightmare come to life, Mikey. Sad spirit living inside of a mannequin. You know how like ghosts and spirits, they're roaming the earth because they have unfinished business.
Yes.
The sad spirit that inhabited the mannequin that brought you to life one day because of a child's nightmare.
Yes.
So what is that sad spirit looking for? What is the unfinished business you have?
No, I think it would be to finish my back catalog of games.
Oh, that's what it is.
It's got to be it. How can I leave this earthly plane without finishing fucking Cyberpunk 2077?
I just imagine you finishing Cyberpunk or finish the last one, the controller gets put down, the spirit comes out of your life, you go back into an all-white mannequin that's like into the couch. I'm sobbing next to you. I'm like, that was fun, friend. See you on the other life.
What would you do with the mannequin if you knew that I was...
I'll throw it out. Welcome to the Retrograde
podcast where we remind you what you used to love and whether or not you still should.
My name's Andrew Bascom, and with me as always is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Lumbricine Aaronworth.
Lumbricine?
Well, because the scientific name for an earthworm, Andrew, is a Lumbricina.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, and
Wow.
earthworms are obviously at the center, the epicenter of the game we're going to be focusing on this week, which is Earthworm Jim 2.
Oh, that's so exciting. Lumbricina.
Lumbricina.
Yeah, okay, such confidence in your voice. Lumbricina.
Lumbricina.
Okay,
Yeah,
Lumbricina.
yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
fantastic. Lumbricina Jim 2.
Lumbricina Jim 2.
Lumbricina James 2. Thank you very much. If we're being formal.
We're being very formal
Yeah.
about this. When we're talking about an earthworm inhabiting a spacesuit, we're going to be formal about this. There's no
Absolutely.
two ways about it.
There's no joking in this episode. We just need to get right to this game. We need to speak about it with the respect it deserves.
100%. So obviously, if you're new to this podcast, first of all, thanks for listening.
Hey.
Secondly, typically what we do is you take a look back at the games that we used to play when we were kids. Usually it's something we had an affinity towards one way or another. We rate it and review it based on our memories of the game. Then we play it, and then we come back and rate and review the game as it holds up in the modern day against the likes of modern games. Both scores out of 4 bits. Let's see where this one holds up.
Well, we did the original Earthworm Jim.
We did a while ago.
A very long time ago.
Yes.
And to be honest, I'd recommend you don't go back and listen to it.
The audio quality, not great.
It was that long ago where it's
Yes.
like, oh yeah, that's like the pre-BC, well, I don't know what the BC and AD of us getting like equipment and actually recording
Oh, yeah.
in a studio, which you can watch on YouTube right now if you wanted to come see us.
Hell yeah.
And where we record and stuff like that. But yeah, before it was just a microphone between us and us just talking about games, just guys being dudes.
Just guys being dudes talking about games and changing the mic quality as soon as we went to go play the video games. It was not a great look.
No, so now we're coming back with a vengeance to play Earthworm Jim 2, in the more modern setup. But
Well, let's start us off with this. We will get into the game and down to brass tacks when it comes time to do so. But before we do that, why don't you tell us, Andrew, that impression that you had of the game going into it, Earthworm Jim 1? Did you expect to like it?
Yeah.
And how did it hold up for you back? When
You know
we
what?
went to
It's
go play
funny
it?
actually because last week with Mr. Mosquito, I felt like it's funny.
That's Mr. Mosquito to you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Derek Mosquito. That Earthworm Jim came up just naturally because it's a game that was very odd and had its own weird aesthetic and weird missions and goals kind of thing.
Sure.
Not even inside, not even like level, but I mean the game itself.
Yeah.
And Earthworm Jim was the thing that I went back to originally because it's just got such a weird aesthetic. And I also remember going in, oh, this is going to suck.
Yes.
This is just one of these like Booger Man type things where it's like weird for the sake of weird. And then you play it and you're like, so there's nothing to this.
Right.
And I was completely wrong. I remember that game being kind of tight and fun.
Yes.
And
Very hyper stylized.
yes,
Yeah.
like kind of the thing that you're like, it was so refreshing because you don't make things like this today where you're like, this is so weird and it's burned into my brain now.
100%. It's funny you mentioned Booger Man.
Yeah.
Game that came out.
Not because I want to.
Not because you wanted to,
hate
because
that
you
game.
needed to.
Yes. Got to get it off a chest.
We've got a quota to fill, Andrew. You mentioned that game came out in 1994 for the Sega Genesis.
Okay.
This game, Earthworm Jim 2, came out in 1995. One major difference between Earthworm Jim 2 and Earthworm Jim 1 is you have a companion with you in Earthworm Jim 2.
What is the thing of the time, eh?
Companions?
Yes.
Tails.
Tails.
That's it.
Luigi.
Nope.
Yoshi.
Yoshi. The companion in Earthworm Jim 2, his name is Snott, S-N-O-T-T.
Fucking
and is
hell.
basically a big booger that helps you not double jump, but like float, and you can whip it and all that stuff. So clearly, we disparage Andrew as head in hand right now.
That So I just said all those nice things.
Yes.
And you knew that. And you're just holding on to it going like, man, he's going to be miserable when
You're going to love my booger, baby.
I hate this.
You're going to love my booger,
I take
baby.
it back. This sucks. Earthworm Jim 2, 0 out of 4.
We're going to see. I mean, this is another one of those games that I think kind of, I struggle separating the number 1 and 2. I mean, we were playing this game, early in our lives. So I know I played both of them. I played, in fact, the 3D one as well that came out afterwards, I think on the N64. But my impressions are very much more tailored around Earthworm Jim's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Surgeon's General.
Surgeon's General, the possessive.
Before we get more in depth on the game, kind of as a little teaser there, we know you love number 1. We know number 2's got boogies. So where are you going to come in? Who knows? But I want to talk instead about other games right now because we're recording this after the Easter long weekend, or the Passover long weekend, or I'm sure there are other holidays and other
the end of Ramadan.
The end of Ramadan.
Yeah.
Now I want to stress that I have been struggling to find time to play Elden Ring.
Okay.
Consistently. I had put a decent amount of time into it, but finally over the Easter weekend, I had time to play Elden Ring.
Okay.
And boy, did I.
Yeah?
I played a lot of it.
Oh, okay.
And I was miserable most of the time.
Oh, cool.
I still
related to the game or not?
I mean, doubly so because I was playing the game. Yeah.
Didn't help.
Didn't help. I played a lot more of it. I'm getting more used to it. See last week's episode for my thoughts on it. Not much has changed.
Okay.
And I'm going to kind of avoid saying too much more until I've beaten the game and I have more thoughts, or if something really changes significantly, like I respect my character or something. But I played so much of it over the weekend.
Respect your character?
Respect.
Oh.
Minus the T.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't respect anything about me.
He needs to make a decision where I'm like, okay, he's earned my respect.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's that I played so much of it that I needed a palate cleanser. Absolutely needed it because it was just too much. I'd pick up my controller after a break. I'd be like, yeah, I'm ready to do this again.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get frustrated. Why not? Let's do this. And and after so many hours of that, I'm like, nope, got to take a break. And you know what I picked up again?
What?
After Tunic was Katamari Damacy.
Oh, wow.
Just such a fucking lovely ass game.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Game Pass under Katamari Damacy Reroll. When was the last time you played that game?
Oh, years. Oh, God.
It is such a fucking delight. We got to do that game on the podcast at some point because it's amazing how quickly I took to it. I was thinking I was just going to play a couple rounds, move on. And I played it all through the night.
Wow.
I stayed up later playing Katamari Damacy over Elden Ring.
So if you're new to the podcast, you need to know this is very surprising. If you go back and listen to, I don't know, any episode, you'll hear Mikey talk about Dark Souls 2 and saying how it's his favorite game of all time.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden they're making a bigger and more expensive version of Dark Souls 2 and they're, whatever. And the lineage of games goes on. And so that's why I just think it's so surprising. You're like, Everyone else finally is now showing love to this franchise that you've loved forever. And you're like, It's like you're an original hipster kind of thing.
You know what? I knew that was where you were going with this, and I want to clarify. It is not that I'm upset that the game is popular now, and I feel like that's been taken away from me. I am so happy for FromSoft to be A-list right now.
Yeah.
I've always thought they were A-list. Now they are in terms of their compensation. This game is selling like crazy. Elden Ring is.
Yeah, hotcakes.
But I've been pretty vocal on the podcast about the fact that open world games do not necessarily mean better to me, and I'm really bumping up against that in Elden Ring. I understand that most of the world prefers the open world. They want more of what they like, and they want to be able to roam freely in that. I'm just not really like that. And that is the main differentiation between the other Dark Souls games and Bloodborne that I'd played and this one.
Yeah.
Even down to the fact that Sekiro, which is a game that I didn't finish, the first FromSoft game I haven't finished in forever. One of the reasons why I was upset with it was the inclusion of stealth mechanics and the fact that there was so much vertical movement, like up, down, left, right. Exploration just felt a little bit more overwhelming than I'm used to. And I'm realizing this is why I like isometric games as well, because I can kind of understand that the space I'm looking at is limited.
Right.
Jumping up and down isn't really necessary. Looking up and down, moving the camera, being so hyper aware of what's around me. I kind of want to be tunneled down somewhere. And I've been accused of being less of a gamer for that, because it's you want an easier thing, a hand-holdy thing, and that's not it at all. No. I just like the fact that, listen, some people who dominate their lives want to be dominated in bed.
Wow. That's
They
where you're
need-
going
they
with this.
need a, They need a break.
What a swift left turn this
I don't
was.
dominate. I don't. Let's talk about sex for a minute.
Yeah. Okay, this is our sex segment.
It's to say that like
Doing
if you
it.
spend so much time in your day-to-day life doing things a certain way.
Yes.
Sometimes you want
opposite.
The opposite.
Yes.
And I think that I find that I get overwhelmed in my day-to-day life and I want more structure in my leisurely life.
Right.
And I find that I just don't get that in the open world scenario.
No, I get that. You must hate where video games are going then.
In a way I do.
Because
the AAA titles, yes.
Yeah. Yes, to justify the costs associated with these huge expenses to make these games and then to, charge the prices and the advertising and to get as many hands on as possible. It feels like they are just upping up the playtime. And how do they up the playtime? By creating a world that takes that time to traverse.
And I will say about Elden Ring that it feels like the things that they populate the world with to make it more lived in and to quote unquote increase playtime are way better than what you would find in something like Assassin's Creed.
Right.
It feels more varied. It feels more intentional.
Man, Assassin's Creed just
Look,
dummy of this.
I know people love it, but like that is to me the most cookie cutter way to do an open world. Just check boxes everywhere. Like it's all about like the collectathons and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think Elden Ring does it right. It just did it with a formula that I didn't think needed to be changed for me personally.
Yeah.
I think that it's better for the game and the game industry. It was going to happen eventually.
What did they do? They massacred my boy.
They massacred my boy. My boy became a man. And now I'm.
You don't recognize him anymore.
I don't recognize him anymore.
Yeah. Who is this? Who is this man? Strapping young man that everyone loves. Not my boy.
Oh, that's not a mirror? No.
No. Yeah, fuck you. Did you mock me?
No, I was like mocking myself laughing.
Did you just mock me?
No, wait, what the hell? Now it feels like it's really pointed now.
Feels like it's really pointed now.
So you're saying you're not mocking me?
No, that's me thinking. That's when I hear your voice. That's just where it goes. And I'm mocking my interpretation of your voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just take your word for it. It's just, I make it, okay, relax. It makes it feel like, I'm taking a wild assumption that that's why these open world games are becoming so ubiquitous in the thing. And it's just because they have to justify a certain amount. Because it seems like unrelated that every game now is like, you won't believe how big this map is and stuff like that. And you're like, I don't know if that's always a thing. Speaking of collectathons.
Yes.
I'm playing the Lego Star Wars.
Andrew, I am so happy you picked this game up, and I can't wait to pick your brain about it.
That's very good. Wow. Okay. I've never really played Lego games before.
Yes.
So I didn't, and I know I missed, I don't know, the first 75. So I'm not going to go back and play them. I don't know if I left the story off or anything like that.
Andrew, you have a lot of catching up
I
to do.
really do. This is a game for babies. It's a baby game. I'm sorry. Like, is this for adults?
Yeah.
I think I could play with like half asleep and finish the game.
Is there death in the game?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've died.
Okay.
Not knowing because I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And they're
Right.
like, build something. I'm like, oh, okay, very good. That's Lego. I like it. All right. I will say the story is really good.
Well, it's Star Wars.
Well, yeah, but then the other side is that the jokes that they interpret into it are actually kind of funny. Like, there are little things. So I'm at the beginning with Leia trying to get off the ship and send, Obi, you're my only hope.
Wait, so because it's based on the Skywalker Saga.
It's based on the Skywalker
It
Saga.
doesn't start with Episode 1?
No, it started with the canonical New Hope opening, but but with touches of, I believe, Rogue One. Okay, because what's the scene where you see Darth Vader just ruin people?
That's
in the
the
hallway?
end of Rogue One.
That's the end of Rogue One, which is the beginning of New Hope.
New Hope.
Okay, perfect. So they are just cutting them in together.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
That's really neat.
And you see a lot more Leia like kicking ass and stuff like that, which is fun. And
does she take names as well?
I don't believe she was taking names.
Oh, shit.
Her hands are too busy with throats.
Oh, okay. She's ripping throats.
It's ripping throats. It's going for the turkey. Is that... But you're a C-3PO. You're like you're going around trying to find an escape pod off the ship, and every escape pod you went to, like one of the escape pods was filled with like a jacuzzi, and the stormtroopers are in it, and you're like, okay, that's funny.
That's amazing.
That's funny. Like one of them is the storage unit. And you're like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Like I was,
I saw one clip where you're leaving Tatooine and in the Millennium Falcon, and two stormtroopers look at each other, and one of them's like, they were the droids we were looking for, which is really fucking funny.
That's really funny. Yeah. If you like Star Wars, this is kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like I think you have to go play this game, but it's just To talk about Dark Souls and that franchise and then immediately talk about the Lego franchise could not be on other sides of video games.
Well, 100%.
It just shows you what a video game can be.
Now, when you say it's a game for babies,
It's a game for babies.
it's a game for babies.
It's a game for babies.
Is that a good thing or a bad?
ERSB.
Yes.
B.
ESRB.
ERSRB. And on the bottom it says B for babies. Not PG-13. Not.
I thought it would have been ESR baby. Is that a bad thing, or are you enjoying it in spite of that?
The problem is that the lack of challenge will only let me play for so long, because there's not going to be that moment like Elden Ring where you die and you go, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, I wasn't paying enough attention.
True.
You know,
True.
Like, it is the collectathon element of it. And if you're obsessive, if you've got some, some element of your psyche is built towards just collecting every single part of it, this game must be both so satisfying and so terrifying.
Yeah.
But you're just kind of running around and they all come floating into you, and I don't really care.
The little pieces.
Yeah, little pieces of destroying
that
stuff.
does nothing for you?
No.
Really?
No. Because the problem is, it's kind of like Whose Lines It Anyway, where the points don't matter. So eventually you start looking up, you're like, I have 10,000 of these things. Like, what's the difference between 10,000, 80,000, 2 million, 40? I don't even know. You know, like, it's like, there's no scale, right? It's not like if they said there was 100 pieces this level, you'd be like, oh, okay. And I'd be obsessive about it. But now it's like, I don't even know what this means.
Because those bits of Lego are kind of used for unlockables of different characters and things like that. It's a concept for a game that really interests me. I think I would enjoy it. I just worry because of the difficulty that I might get a little brain dead if I play it. Like, and that's not a shot, because I think I would love to love games like this, because if I loved games like this, I would enjoy gaming much more than when I'm playing something like Elden Ring. And I'm fucking furious at a point in like. I'm at the point in Elden Ring where I'm like, am I finishing this because I'm enjoying the experience, or because I know I have to finish this game?
Yes. There's so many video games for me sometimes.
Yeah.
Where I go, what am I doing now? I agree with you. And like the Star Wars of it all is the fun part.
Yes.
Like there are parts where they don't make jokes. Like that logo looks like the logo, and the scroll and the music are the exact same as the movie. Right. And that, no matter what happens, will always get the hair on your back going up, like back of your neck.
Nope, I wax.
Oh, you wax
the back of
your neck?
The back of my neck.
Okay.
And all my back.
You really just get
my
completely
pussy and my
hairless.
crack.
Yes. It just makes you feel things. And so even going back and doing it, like I'm excited to play a few more characters and see how it feels differently. I also haven't done a ship yet.
You gasped there.
Well, I was surprised I haven't done a ship yet. I did. I think I was trying to breathe, and my body was like, no. Not now. I'm
you
like,
got
okay.
more to say. What about that ship?
Yeah. I want to see part of, like, I haven't done the flying parts yet, so I'm interested to see that part. And then the other part too, I really want to get to when Poe says, the Emperor's back. And everyone's like, oh no.
Damn it.
Damn it. We thought we took care of that. Nah, we thought we took care of it a couple times. Nope. Emperor's back, baby.
The good thing about the tone of this game, from everything I've read and seen, it feels like they poke fun at those kind of like memed moments in Star Wars, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm waiting for like the Star Wars, the Stormtrooper hitting his head.
Yes.
All the little stuff that you've heard over and over and over again. I want to see Chewie rip some arms off.
100%.
Yeah. I want to see Han Solo give purpose to his name and go, I'm just alone. He's like, one Solo. And you're like... That's actually what he says in the movie. So that's
I haven't seen. I think Solo is the only Star Wars movie I haven't seen.
You know what? There's a thing online which Star Wars has this amazing
trying
thing of
to
doing.
redeem it.
Yes, where they go like, the prequels weren't that bad, and you're like, oh, I was there. I think they were. Okay, and the same thing with Han Solo, excuse me, is I saw it and I'm like, no, thank you. And then now people are like, you know what? And I wonder that you haven't seen it and your expectations are basement level.
Yes.
If you went in and go like, well, there's a couple of things that are kind of cool.
That really, it has the potential to make it enjoyable for me. I'm not sure, but I don't know. There's so much, like, even like I'm an enormous Batman fan, and I haven't been able to make it through the Snyder Batman movies. like
that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, that is to me the weirdest one of all. But I get to a point sometimes where I'm like, just because I love the franchise doesn't mean I need to consume all of it. There's like, I watched Batman versus Dracula, and I was watching it and I'm like, I don't think I love this that much.
You didn't like Batman versus Dracula?
But I did like Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Were they versus each other?
They said at first they were. I'm not going to spoil what happens,
Okay,
Andrew.
please don't.
But you might be surprised.
Well, as long as it's not pizza time, I'll be fine. Yeah, I imagine Batman does see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's like, freaks. I got to kill him.
Yeah,
I got to destroy this.
I guarantee you that happens. I guarantee it.
But it's funny. So you're not a completionist. Would you call this means video games, everything else? Because this, I feel like, would speak to people that listen to this podcast that because they like retro video games. I think a huge drive or thrust for these people is to go back and play games that they haven't played before.
Sure.
Lending themselves a little bit to being a completionist.
Yeah.
Do you think you're a completionist?
I'm definitely not a completionist. I am so quick to drop something as soon as I'm like, I'm just no
People,
thanks.
games, yeah.
Yeah, my children. Yeah. Doctor puts them in my hands. I'm like, nope. I drop it and walk away.
God, no.
Wife's
Look at me
like,
weird.
is this? I'm like, it's done. Over. That baby was slimy.
Yeah.
Shame on you, doctor.
Yeah.
Putting that in my hands without a warning.
This
is a new Gap sweater I'm wearing.
Well, yeah, some deformed baby coming out like that is half mannequin, half human, and you're like, oh no, it is truly my child. No fingers, just mittens.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't say that I'm a completionist, and I think that may be why I don't love the open world games, because
Right.
I think it really plays to that part of your mind, that obsessive need to poke into every corner. It feels like when the sandbox expands, it's like there are so many corners to poke in, and for me, I'm just like, I'm way more about, am I enjoying the experience of playing the game mechanically? So when you say, like, you're talking about Star Wars, the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, and I'm thinking like, what made for babies?
Made for babies.
But what I'm thinking is like, you know what a better version of that is? Ratchet and Clank, which is a little bit more difficult. It's still super fun. You get that collectible feeling, but like, I have 100%ed Ratchet and Clank games before,
Wow.
but I didn't feel the need to do that with the new one. And it's not like I enjoyed it less than anyone else who did. It's just that's not my experience for it.
I was going to ask, how many games have you 100%ed?
Honestly, probably only like 10 or something like that, which may sound like a lot, but keep in mind, I've been playing video games since I was a baby. The demographic for whom Skywalker Saga was
For babies.
For babies.
Sweet
what about
babies.
you? How many games have you?
Very
run?
few.
Yeah,
Very few. This is not in my makeup.
Well, you 100% did MVP Baseball 2005.
I did.
It allows for 120 seasons.
I did. I'm on 72 or something like that. One day I'll get there. I just hope to finish it before I die.
How's your season going? Well, the robots have taken over.
We're on our 4th Civil War. I don't know. I feel like my heart's not in this one.
Strangely enough, the 4th Civil War happened in 2033, though.
Yes, we got a lot to catch up on. Fast.
A lot.
Robot Abraham Lincoln is back, and he's pissed.
Everyone must professionally wrestle. Listen, I feel like the year 20. What would 120 years in the future be, Andrew? 2142?
Yeah, something like that.
I did it.
Yeah,
I did
from
it.
2005 or now?
From now.
Okay, yeah, then yes.
Okay, good. I feel like in that year, that may be the only year we would see something like an earthworm in a spacesuit, because we're not going to see that in our day-to-day lives now, and it's upsetting.
No, yeah. The space race is over. We don't care about space anymore.
We don't?
I know. It's too bad.
I care a lot about it.
Do you care a lot?
What would you rather have us know everything about?
Is this about the ocean or space?
Ocean or space?
This is such a good question. Ocean or space? I feel like we've given up on the ocean.
Did we even get started?
Yeah, we're now talking about Mars, and we're like, hey, we haven't even visited parts. I just don't know. It must be possible, right? To see the deepest parts of.
That's the thing. I mean, is it possible to see the ends of space? Who knows? Like, say you could just have a light shine on all of it.
Wow.
And I know space has the answers to way more than our oceans ever could, but also, like, what if we found other things?
Yeah, but I guess, I don't know. Does it? You know?
Imagine how boring it would be if it's like, no, there's an end. It's right here. It's just white wall of space.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's it.
I don't know. I wonder what, the ocean would teach us about certain elements, but I think
love.
It would be teach us about love, David. But is that I fear that it would just be, oh yeah, look at all that stuff. All of it's terrifying. Okay, cool. And then we just move on, and you're like,
that fish has a light on its head.
Yeah,
and big ass teeth.
Yeah, I wonder what we would find. I guess I should say ocean to be contrarian.
That is so you.
We should. No, that is now my stance on this podcast. We need to We need to get to the bottom of the oceans.
We need to get to the bottom of this. That should be your tagline.
We need to get to the bottom of this. Oh,
Ocean.
that's good. Yes,
we should get to
absolutely.
the bottom of this. Dot.
We need
Ocean.
to kill Namor.
Are you talking about the Brazilian soccer player Neymar?
No, just in case he's listening, but yes. No, but no, is that we need to find Atlantis.
Yes.
And build a casino there. There you go. That's my stance. We need to get to the bottom of this. Andrew
We can
Bascom.
call it Atlantis City.
Mikey.
Andrew.
Come on. What are we doing here?
do this.
Someone get Jim Cameron on the phone. Let's go.
Earthworm Jim Cameron. The protagonist of today's game. So we talked about how we've had some experience with Earthworm Jim 1, a game that we played earlier on in the podcast, a game that we really enjoyed.
We did.
And Earthworm Jim 2 has a lot of big shoes to fill, big space suits to fill,
Yeah.
you might say. We're doing this game because now, if you have Nintendo Switch Online, Earthworm Jim 2 is available.
Perfect.
Great value bundle, I think,
Absolutely.
on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online. They keep adding to it. They've got the Nintendo 64. I saw something online. I don't think it's true, but it was like the same kind of template for Nintendo Switch Online games when they announced like N64 games or NES or SNES games, and it was for Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way Nintendo's putting Virtual Boy games on the Nintendo Switch, but imagine they did.
Was that April 1st?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I think it was just a fan did it, and then everyone was like, this is Nintendo doesn't know what they're doing. And I'm like, is anyone going to Nintendo.com to see if this is true?
Like, it feels like one of those things where you're like, we need to do this, and then everyone spends 30 seconds doing it. You're like, okay, good,
Yeah,
moving on.
exactly,
And you're like, I
exactly.
spent so many months doing this.
Yes, I would love to see that, because why not explore more Virtual Boy? I don't know we'll ever get it, but until then, you can spend your time on Nintendo Switch Online playing Earthworm Jim 2.
Earthworm Jim.
Earthworm Jim 2, originally released November 15th, 1995 for the SNES and the Genesis in North America, developed by Shiny Entertainment.
Yeah.
Originally designed just like Earthworm Jim 1 for the Genesis, but then ported to the SNES right around the exact same time. We're going to be playing the game on the SNES in spirit of the Nintendo Switch Online, and the fact that the SNES version allowed you to switch weapons while you were playing, and for some reason the Genesis version did not.
That's so strange.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
It was also, it came out in 1995, but it was eventually ported to the PlayStation and Saturn, and then like later releases on like the Game Boy Advance and the Wii Virtual Console and all that.
How much further does this franchise go?
So this is the weird thing. There's Earthworm Jim 3D, which is the quote unquote third entry on the N64, and then there's
I remember that.
There's an Earthworm Jim game on the Game Boy Color that came out. But it's weird to think about the fact that there isn't much else beyond this. Like every other major franchise that we've done, and I kind of would consider Earthworm Jim to be a major franchise. Like everyone who played games around this era intimately knows Earthworm Jim.
Yep.
Because they fucked him. They know him carnally and intimately.
They have blackmail pictures that are not favorable.
You know what's
He can never
inside-
run for office.
He can never run for office.
never run for office.
Unless he just owns it.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny though. These days we'd be like, Earthworm Jim, you can run for president as long as you were born in America.
Yes,
I don't care if you're an earthworm.
exactly.
Yeah, that'd be the issue.
He wasn't born on American soil. He was born in American soil.
That's great.
Thanks very much.
No problem.
Politics, baby.
Okay, yeah. We should get more into politics.
You know what? We made the decision to talk more video games on this podcast.
Yeah.
Bad call. Bad call.
We just need to get into edgy political jokes.
Edgy political jokes. Next guest. See you next week, Bill Maher.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week, Bill Maher and Ted Cruz. Here we go. Oh, God.
You know what I always find interesting about
What's that?
this is around this era, 95, you get games being ported from the Genesis to the PlayStation.
Right.
And it's weird
Interesting time.
to think that those two consoles kind of coexisted, but they absolutely did.
Yep.
I mean, the 32 and 64-bit era, how many bits was the PlayStation? I should know this, but I don't.
132?
No, because the 64 was 64, right?
I tried my best.
You tried your best.
Yeah.
We'll find that out.
I have other numbers I can say if you want me to.
Oh, you know what?
248.
248. That's going the opposite direction, I think.
61.
61 is probably, I just think that denomination of
4.
number. 4 is going way back the
Okay.
other way.
2000.
PlayStation Bits was a...
PlayStation Bits.
PlayStation console.
Sounds like a game.
You know what? There probably was one there.
Yeah, PlayStation Bits.
Either way, we're delving into the realm of 3D and
Yeah.
reporting these Genesis games. We did the same thing with Space Jam, another fantastic game that we
Holy
did on this podcast. Space Jam versus Ocean.
Oh,
That's
Space Jam.
We should do Space Jam versus Echo the Dolphin. That's the ocean versus space thing.
Yeah, they were supposed to like. I forget what it was, but we're talking about the Evil Dead franchise.
Yes.
Right? The third movie of that was supposed to be Medieval Dead because they go back to kind of like a Ren Fair type thing.
Right.
And the studio was like, that's a stupid idea. No. And you're like, well, that's kind of the movie. And I feel the same way about Space Jam, where it's supposed to be like, what am I trying to think? It's like virtual Space Jam or like, what is an expression that I'm trying to think of? But like they were trying to say like we should change the title because we are essentially going into 3D like
I see.
Yeah. And I'm like that would have made so much more sense because they don't go into space in this next movie.
Right.
They go into like inside computers and stuff like that. There we go.
Cyberspace Jam.
That's what it is. Thank you very much.
Did they actually say that?
It's supposed to be cyberspace.
I thought I just came up with that on my own.
Well, you can take credit for it because it never came out.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, there you go.
Playmates Interactive, kind of an interesting story here. They published the game. It was developed by Shiny Entertainment.
Oh, I thought it was a subdivision of Playboy.
So it sounds like it, right?
Yeah, I know.
Right.
It's just a bunch of women in bunny ears and suits. Like, the Earthworm Jim's looking good, guys. And he was like,
the suit is a metaphor for a condom. You're like, what? He's not in a suit. He's in a robe. Like
he's in a smoking jacket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the weird legacy behind this game, the franchise in general, Earthworm Jim, because it started. Playmates Interactive wanted to make a game because they had some success with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, licensed property, which was made essentially at a certain point to sell toys. The comic wasn't originally, but they really capitalized on turning Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles into a toy franchise. Right?
If you didn't know that, go back and read the original comics.
Holy shit, it's so dark.
It is so dark. They're in black and white. They don't have different colored masks. They're all in red, and it's originally a Daredevil ripoff, like completely 1-to-1.
Is that true?
Well, that's why they're the foot in Daredevil. They're the hand. They have Stick. They have Splinter. I
didn't realize that.
Oh, it's all 1-to-1. It's exactly Daredevil.
It is amazing that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles became what they are as a much more like family-oriented brand based on what they originally started as. But Playmates saw that and they're like, okay, well, we had some success with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line of toys and all that, but they wanted to make something new for themselves. You know, an original in-house property. Normally, what you would do is you'd either create comics or a cartoon. G.I. Joe, Transformers, all this stuff to kind of make it so kids are watching it and then want to buy the toys. Playmates actually was a little bit ahead of the curve and said, let's make a video game about it and then sell toys based on the video game. So they, which was very much ahead of its time and kind of rare. So Shiny Entertainment, the developer, actually bought the rights to Earthworm Jim from a man named Doug Tennaple, based on like just an original sketch, like almost like a cocktail napkin sketch. Like, hey, here's my idea. And they're like, yeah, I fucking want that. They bought the rights to it, brought him on as lead designer.
I just imagine Doug in a meeting, just like, what about this? And they're like, yeah, that's okay. And he's like, okay. What about this? And they're like, oh, and they're all like elbowing each other. Yeah,
I like pretty good. He just like there was a worm on the ground. He just like tried to squish it with the napkin, and someone's like, "What do you got in your hands?" There, he's like, he just unrolls it. There's a dead.
It does feel like Mad Libs a little bit of like, what about Earthworm Jim, like looking around the room. He's like, oh, okay.
There's a guy named Jim at the boardroom table. He's like, that seems suspicious. And camera pans and there's an earthworm sitting at the thing. Like, that seems very suspicious.
In a suit. Yeah, it's a real Nintendo naming strategy of like lawyers, plumber, landlords. Yeah.
But it worked for them, at least for a couple games.
Well, it did. No, for sure. It is funny that you're right. How it's disappeared. Like
Earthworm Jim.
But how much has it disappeared? And I wonder what the relevancy of Earthworm Jim is. Like, if Fortnite said next season you could play as Earthworm Jim, would that move the needle at all?
You know what? It weirdly seems to. People care about Earthworm Jim. Just recently, there was a new line of toys announced. To be fair, I don't know how well they sold. Right. Better or worse. But I feel like it still has enough weight. They announced years ago that Earthworm Jim 4 was going to come out on a console, exclusively for a console called the Intellivision Amico.
What's that?
It's basically like the PlayStation Mini or the SNES Mini. Like, do you remember the Intellivision?
Yeah.
Mattel-based console. I actually, believe it or not, fucking have one.
Really?
I do. My dad kept it from when he was a kid.
Wow.
Weird-ass games. Okay. An Evil Knievel game.
Cool.
There's like a backgammon game that's just called backgammon. And they were going to recreate the Intellivision Amico with a lot of the classic games on it. And Earthworm Jim 4 was going to be an exclusive for that. It was supposed to come out a few years ago, and I think delays and COVID and all that stuff. It's still kind of up in the air as to whether or not it comes out.
That story makes me think it's not relevant, because that backward ass system is the only thing that it could get.
Well, so I think that they still had the rights to it. Tommy Tallarico, who was the original,
that guy's come up a couple times on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, big name in video games. He did reviews on the Run and Electric Playground with Victor Lucas, the video game review show. He also was a composer for a ton of games back in the day. He did Video Games Live. He has a stake in Intellivision, and he wanted to actually bring Earthworm Jim to Intellivision Amico as a way to sell that console.
Right.
Smart move, who knows? A little bit marginalizing the Earthworm Jim franchise in terms of its potential reach. I feel like it's ripe for a reboot. I would fucking love that, especially in the, Joe and Max getting a remaster. Yeah. Streets of Rage 4. I think the world is expecting something like that soon.
Well, you and I have talked about this on this podcast multiple times, where it's like people clamor for it needs a remake. And then you go, it did get one. It came out. No one cared. Yes. You're like, oh, right. Because in your head, it sounds so much better than actually doing, like Streets of Rage, we did the remake.
Yeah. Didn't love it.
Fine.
It's just okay.
But it's so much better in your memory than it is of like, oh, you know what? I need a new version, because that new version, like, it's kind of like the same stuff of like Power Rangers got a movie that came out like, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that. Did anyone watch it? No, it sucks.
And a video game too, Power Rangers. It's crazy that Power Rangers does keep coming. It must be selling and we just don't realize it.
I guess so, but I'm just saying even more as a concept of saying, like, you think that thing that you want as a remake in modern day, it most likely has already come up, or they just don't have interest for it.
It's funny because it may sound like we're sort of like wagging our fingers at these people, but I am the biggest problem with this, because I constantly want remakes and this and that, and then I play them and I'm like, oh, it's not as good as like
1,000%. I want these things. I'm just trying to be realistic in my own head from like tempering my own expectations here, because like I want these things and then they come out and I'm like, no, okay, the review's good. No,
yeah.
Okay.
And do you know why I think personally I have an issue with it, not an issue with it? Remake them if you want, sell them if you want, but why they never really land for me is because that side-scrolling, the 2D side-scrolling era of video games, which was what video games were for so long, existed, and they had their issues and their formulas, and they played a certain way. But since that was the only way you could design games, people have come back, and the indie scene has made games like Rogue Legacy and Hollow Knight and some of the new Metroid games, and really changed the way that these games are to be played. They add some RPG elements to them. They add some tighter controls and this and that. So in my mind, I've conflated modern 2D side-scrollers or platformers with how they played originally. And when something like Streets of Rage 4 comes out, and it's really just a a really good-looking version of that pretty bare-bones 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up without the RPG elements, without some of the more modern touches, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't realize that like it isn't, I don't play those modern games because they are what they used to be back when I used to play them in the early 90s. I play them because they're a re-envisioning of them. So if you stay too true to what the game was when it first came out in the early 90s, it's just not going to be as fun to play.
No, and and to even give an example, we did Kirby a couple weeks ago on this. A new Kirby game came out, which is a much bigger property than anything we're talking about now. Yeah. Everyone collectively lifted their head for 30 seconds and then went back to playing Elden Ring.
True.
That's true. It feels like the consciousness at least did.
I think it's funny because I wonder what the consciousness would have been if Elden Ring did not exist at the time. Because people really loved Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I haven't played it yet. I would love to soon. In fact, I think I probably will over the summer once I have a little bit more time. But I feel like Elden Ring is just such a monolith that you can't help but, like, everyone I see on Twitter in the gaming space is like 200 hours into Elden Ring.
Yeah, but it's not even Elden Ring. It feels just like there's always that game that's out. You know what I mean? Years ago, it was Last of Us 2, and it feels like every clip you saw posted was that. Right. Or, Red Dead or something like that. And every clip you saw was posted that. And God help us when another GTA game comes out, in the next decade or whatever. So, like, it's just, it feels like there's always that game, and there's only so much oxygen in the room. And even when you get and everyone likes Kirby, it's a good game.
Yes.
And everyone went, oh, okay, cool. And then went back to the big game that they're playing. And it's like, it's tough. It's really just tough.
It is. That's why I kind of like the more bite-sized games. Like, give me a good 10-hour experience.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all for that.
That's heaven.
I don't know that we're going to be playing Earthworm Jim for 10 hours. However, just a quick little recap of the story. You're going to save Princess What's-Her-Name from Psychro. Again, just like number one, the intention of this when Shiny Entertainment wanted to create this game was to kind of poke fun at the traditional platformers, essentially saying there's always a princess, there's always a lighthouse, there's always a girl, there's always a princess, and they're fairly interchangeable. Would you?
No, I'm just looking at the BioShock.
Oh yeah, I got
me.
BioShock posters in my room there. And kind of trying to like re-envision things. That's why I found it kind of weird when they were a little bit backwards looking in the development of this one by adding Snot, the Booger companion, because that's a clear, you're taking that from Booger Man. Like that's 100% what it is.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just it is like contributing to the aesthetic where it's like, things are like kind of weird here.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, Booger. Okay, great, awesome. Snot, so sorry.
I guess it's
proprietary
before,
name.
Before video, SNOTT.
Good.
Yeah. That's how you know it's artsy.
They knew before the SEO was around that they knew that they could we got to make sure people are Googling only Snot, the correct one.
It does show some signs, though, of trying to really broaden the scope of what a side-scroller is. Not every level, like the first one, is kind of like left and right, whatever. There are isometric levels. There's weird, like almost fever dream trips into like a trivia game. There's they really try to play around with the mechanics from level to level and make this more of an experience. So yes, the Snot thing feels like a little bit of maybe a misstep or a cliche at this point.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
I'm judging very blindly right now.
Yeah, very blindly. You got that blindfold on, but it looks good on you.
Yeah.
You're really pulling out your inner bird box here.
I'm glad that's exactly what I was going to bring up. Do you know, so Netflix is going through a little bit of a financial issue right now. They're going to lose 2 million subscribers in the next quarter and blah, 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 blah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they've lost a ton of money. That's great. I don't really care. Is it that because they're cracking down on passwords and cracking down on... what the other thing was, I forget what it is. But do you know that during their self-audit, when they released all these numbers, they said Bird Box is by far their most watched movie ever?
What?
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
That and Old Guard, the Charlize Theron movie, did much better than I think anyone ever thought.
That's so weird.
Like it's in their top 5.
That's so weird.
I know. It's super interesting because it's a super cagey company, so they don't really release their numbers.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, when you get a peek inside, you're like, wait, what? What's going on in there? What's going on?
I would love to know more about that.
I know.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's fascinating. Okay. Netflix, a company that maybe isn't doing as much innovation as a company like Shiny Entertainment with some of their level design. More weapons in this game, obviously, and just kind of like adding to that really hand-painted look and feel to what we had in Earthworm Jim 1. I remember the blaster feeling really good. One thing that always weirded me out about this game, and same with Earthworm Jim 1, I remember there was an ammo count for the blaster, and it was like 999. I'm like, just give me one weapon that's infinite, right?
Yeah.
Because once you run out of weapons, once you run out of bullets, you have to whip yourself using the spacesuit, which is weird because when Earthworm Jim whips, Earthworm Jim, Jim himself, Sir Jim, is out of the spacesuit.
You gotta snap it to a Slim Jim. Yeah, like the suit. What is holding up the suit at that point?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. Well, then again, let's not get into this weird vortex of like reality. What's holding up the suit anytime? It's a stick. It's
Oh, so, you're not using your imagination.
I guess not. Yeah. Which leg do you think that tail goes into? Left
That's
or
a good
right?
question. I don't think it goes into any.
It just goes down to the crotch?
into the
like curls up.
Yeah, I think
that makes me feel very uncomfortable. I don't know why.
Curling worms are gross. That's why.
Are they?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to.
I just imagine it's
anyone,
like in my stomach, I guess, or something like that. Now it's terrifying.
Like all the other worms and parasites that you have just hanging out there having a party.
Yes.
So the reception of this game, often considered to be better than the original.
Okay.
EGM gave it a 7.875 out of 10. That's obviously 3 scores combined, so it gets a little messy. Nintendo Life strangely gave it a 7 out of 10. Total Magazine gave it a 90 out of 100. Tough to get an aggregate score, but it seems to be around the 85-ish range, 80-85, which is pretty solid for a game like this.
It's the Godfather 2 of video games.
The Godfather 2 of video games, exactly. Not always the case when we go back to play these games. But Andrew, what was your experience? Do you recall your experience Earthworm Jim 2 versus number 1, or was it primarily just as a franchise?
No, I do remember number 2, and I actually remember liking it a little bit more. And maybe that was that I was a little bit older, and so maybe it's more whimsical style and stuff like that was more appreciated by me instead of like, this is weird, I like it. You know what I mean? It's more like, oh, I know, this is cool. And so I did like it. I do remember. I even remember from number 1. the side to side and up and down parts of it. Like every level felt very different.
Yeah.
And even at that time, I thought, man, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I liked it, but it also wasn't going to be like the one that I was like, oh man, I'm a big Earthworm Jim guy. You know what I mean?
Oh, no way.
You know this about me. I'm an
Yeah, you know me. I'm an Earthworm Jim G.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know me.
Andrew Earthworm Jim Bascom over here. But I really liked it.
Yes.
So should I give my score?
Yeah, you know what? Let's do that then. I was kind of just going to get into our experiences with it, but we can roll that all into one. So as we mentioned at the top of the episodes, we give the games a rating out of 4 bits based on our memories of the game when we played it as little baby boys, and then we actually play the game, and then we give the game another rating out of 4 bits as it holds up in the modern day against the likes of modern games like Elden Ring, like Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, fucking whatever. I can never get that name right.
No,
Forgotten Land,
the Skywalker Saga.
Skywalker Saga. Yeah.
Saga? Sega?
Sega.
Nice. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 4.
Okay.
Because it was a good game. It's not in the Hall of Fame games of my head of like, I beat that game to death. I couldn't believe how many times I played it. But it did also stay in my memory when there's hundreds of games you play and they just, fall away, right? Like water off a duck's back. So like, I really like this game and I'm very curious. It's also giving me a little bit of room there in the modern day score.
For potentially going a little bit higher.
Maybe, because we really liked it. So I am very excited. So 3 out of 4 for me.
So we'll check at the end of the episode. I don't usually like checking the scores of related games until afterwards, not to paint our scores a certain way, but I liked Earthworm Jim 1 better than Earthworm Jim 2. That's not to say I just played it way more. I bought Earthworm Jim 1. Earthworm Jim 2 was more of a rental for me. I played enough of it, but I always had trouble with the games. I found them fairly difficult. I never made a ton of progress in them. And as a kid, difficulty was not fun for me in a game. I just didn't really enjoy that process.
Because you knew how hard life would be eventually.
I absolutely knew. My dad kept telling me.
Yeah.
I'd say, Dad, I'm stressed. And he'd say, wait until you get to my age. Yeah. That's what he would. That is a true story, what my dad always said to me.
I'm having trouble with the Earthworm Jim. It's like, you're having trouble with the worm in the spacesuit. Wait until you get to my age.
I'm having trouble with the worm in the pants. You know what I mean? Ask your mother. No, I'm not, Dad.
When you're my age, you'll have trouble with Kirby swallowing cars and stuff like that. And you're like, what? Are you a time traveler?
I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 4 as well.
Okay.
No, I liked it.
I'm surprised to hear that. I thought
I liked it, but I loved Earthworm Jim 1.
Okay.
Earthworm Jim 2, like again, it comes down to the fact that as a kid, I played a ton of platformers.
Right.
The cream rises, right?
Okay.
That's the saying?
Yes, the cream rises.
The cream rises.
Yeah.
So I played 50, 100, who knows how many games as a kid, how many platformers. A few of them stay in my memory as games that really left an impression. Earthworm Jim is absolutely one of them.
Okay.
I feel like I was always kind of chasing the dragon from Earthworm Jim 1, especially as it came into Earthworm Jim 3D on the N64. But holy hell.
Heroin reference for a 7-year-old child.
Very good heroin reference. I don't want to say I was smoking heroin as a 7-year-old. So I won't.
Okay.
But just
open and shut.
Here we go.
All right.
So with 3 out of 4, I think, it, like you said, it leaves a little bit of room. Yeah. I did appreciate as a kid some of the differentiation in level design.
Yeah.
And that was something that worked on me so well as a kid. Like you think about something like Contra 3, the Alien Wars, and how they'd go from like the 2D side scrolling to like the over the top
Battletoads.
Battletoads, another one, just changing the scope of what happens level to level. So I really appreciated that, but it didn't leave more of an impression on me than Earthworm Jim 1. So I want to leave a little bit of space.
That's
there.
interesting. I'm super curious what we gave our scores for Earthworm Jim 1 then.
All right, so a 3 and a 3 in the retro score.
Yeah.
It is now go time. We're going to go play the game.
Time.
So we'll see those of you who are a member of the Mushroom Club over there. Otherwise, all the other listeners, we'll see you after the break. It'll be a couple seconds. We'll see you in just the snap of a worm's tail. Just a reminder that you can now find our gameplay segments where we play through a portion of today's game and provide video commentary while doing it over on our Patreon, patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast. Join the Mushroom Club for $5 US per month for access to all the gameplay, plus 2 to 4 bonus episodes per month where we do things like character drafts, top 10 lists, and even take some suggestions from our community. So show some support to the podcast by joining the Mushroom Club at patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast for access to bonus content and all of our gameplay segments. We'll see you guys on the other side.
And welcome back to the Retrograde.
Hello. If in case you're not sure of this, my name is Earthworm Jim. That is Snot. He is the Snot to my Earthworm Jim. Andrew, big snotty boy, loves the snot
I am
jokes.
the snot. God damn it. No, I don't like that. I don't like that.
I am the law.
I resent that. I am vengeance. I resent that. So we, over at Patreon, just played Earthworm Jim 2.
Fuck yeah, we did.
Boy, What a game. There are certain games that we're going to talk it through, and yes, we're going to explain everything that we played and everything we saw. There are certain games where it's very hard to describe what is going on.
It is. I'm very happy that we've switched formats and didn't have to describe what the fuck was going on during the gameplay segment, because it was all over the place, but to its benefit, I think.
Oh no, 100%. But there'd be a lot of pausing and like hands in our head and just going like, okay, so there's a cow and a grandmother, and it's an electric chair, but it's also a pinball machine. I think
I'm
we're
a
inside.
salamander now.
I think I'm a salamander. I mean, we're inside the human body, and people are like calling and going like, I think Andrew's unwell. Like, please someone check on him. And you're like, okay, the anvils come back out. And you're like, it's just a crazy game. Visually, I can't. There's nothing to compare it to.
I think if you're gonna just on a pure aesthetic level, like what do the animations look like? I still think Comic Zone is a decent comparison.
Okay.
With the exception, I think Shiny Entertainment actually did Cool Spot as well as one of their other games.
Cool Spot's an interesting one.
And remember playing Cool Spot, there was that feeling of you almost feel lost in a level. Like there's so many directions and up and down, left and right that you can go, that it almost feels like you need a map to navigate where you are. In points in Earthworm Jim 2, and I think this is almost to its detriment, it feels like the levels are so expansive and exploration feels random. Like you're just kind of moving in a direction, like, can I go this way? Yes. Okay, cool. There's an up or down or left or right. And I think at the time that kind of artificially added an element of longevity to the game. Well, I could have gone right or up or down, or there's secret passages and this and that, but it doesn't feel organic in the way that it does in like a modern game like Hyper Light Drifter, where it has these situations blocked off, where it's like, if you know you're in an area in Hyper Light Drifter where which is an isometric game, if you're not familiar, where there's a secret somewhere, which is to say that the map does not show you what you see on its face. There's like a different perspective you need to get to by going behind some of the geometry or something. Instead of having you constantly in every scene poking and prodding at the corners of every map to see if you can get somewhere, they put an element, like a symbol in the geometry, to say there's a secret around this area. Poke around here. But if there isn't that element, you don't have to poke around. Where it's like at every single moment in Earthworm Jim, I feel like I constantly have to be like running against the walls to see like, is this just going to give way and let me run through it?
There's a certain aspect too that's like visual entrapment, where like you can't like, there's no standard, there's no baseline.
Right.
So it's hard to find out these things. But is that like, I don't know, there is something kind of beautiful about that as well, where you're like, you know, like we talk about in every game, there are people that are very good at this game. So I'm not going to like say this, but in general, I think most people are just running through the game going like, hope I figure this out. Hope I figure it out.
Yes.
You know, and so there is some kind of beautiful about like, oh, I found something. You know what I mean?
Exploration is cool.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's two elements.
Like the ocean and space.
Like the ocean and space. We want to do all of them. And it gets very cold in either one.
In both. And you can't hear them scream either.
Is that true?
In space, you can't hear people scream?
Yeah, because I've seen movies and I can hear what they're saying.
Yeah, but I guess that's on like space stations where there's oxygen. I assume if...
Well, no gravity, you can hear
but there's no gravity, though. You're in space.
Well, yeah, but
the movie Gravity?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I can hear Sandra Bullock.
I think it's only if you're incredibly handsome you can hear people scream.
That's why everyone hears me when I'm sleeping.
I'm sorry, what?
They hear me make sound. I go up to space when I sleep.
Really?
Yeah, it's just transported from one pain to another.
It sounds like you're perfect for this game that we played this week.
Yeah, honestly, just no bearing in reality. Yeah. No grounding.
Comic Zone and Cool Spot were good comparisons if you just dropped a little LSD in there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like just make it weird. You know what I mean?
Add an element of Echo the Dolphin in there.
Yeah, 100%. Except if Echo halfway through the game turned to the camera and went, "This is all strange, isn't it?" And you're like, what? The dolphin's talking.
Well, it turns out Echo the Dolphin kind of was an LSD fever dream. Like we found out a lot about the production of that game.
Yeah, because you play the game and you're like, oh, it's a dolphin trying to find his friends. Got it. And then you hear the story and you're like, I'm sorry,
excuse me? And the developer of that, the creator of that game, followed us on Twitter like right after it came out, and I was like, "Sir, you're not gonna want to listen to that."
We're gonna get out ahead of this and say we really applaud you for your work.
Yes, yeah,
congratulations. I wouldn't listen to the episode.
Please don't do it.
Yeah, I know.
No, so I think you're talking about exploration, and it has kind of two facets. There is the element where it's exploration at random. Let's use God of War as an example. Okay. The original God of War game on PlayStation 2. Yes. There are a lot of chests and secrets hidden at points where the camera just isn't facing. And there's nothing indicating that there would be anything beyond the scope of the camera. So you spend like what that does is like an incredible dissonance between the character and me as the player, where like Kratos is on a path of vengeance. And yet he just rips the head off of Medusa, and then he's going and running around like the edges of a precipice just to see if there's like a chest somewhere.
Yeah.
Like that weird exploration doesn't make sense. It doesn't streamline my exploration.
No, or I know a big complaint you had too was like Last of Us, where it's like, you got to go find your friend. They're screaming because they're getting torn apart by a clicker, and you're like, check the drawers, check the
Just
drawers, check
each
the drawers.
drawer, boom, boom.
Bandage, scissors. Good. All right, good. All right, now I come back and just punch the clicker in the head.
I know that a lot of people don't like that because it's a slot machine. You know, you're pushing up against the thing, you're checking a drawer, you're going up against an invisible wall, and every time it hits, that's bing, bing, bing. That's 3 7s in a row, and you get the reward. I like the fact though that it's like, here's your excuse to go poke around. You know there's something here, so if you look, you will be rewarded.
Yeah.
It cuts down your playtime by hours.
But it does. But here, and the other thing too is there is a motivator. There's a drive to not letting you poke around. The enemies are completely replenishing all the time.
Yes.
So there's a health tax to doing it,
Yes.
which is annoying. But when you phrase it like that, okay, I get it, that you can't just do whatever you want on the level all the time. Or there's a time limit on the level.
Right.
So there are reasons why they're saying, like, if you're going to do it, you got to earn it.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, I get that. I do.
I know a lot of people will disagree just because they don't mind exploring for exploring's sake and poking at all the things in the level. It almost hides secrets better that way. Like, cool, do your thing. That's fine. It's not quite my thing.
We all hide secrets.
We all hide secrets. Some in their freezers, some underneath their floorboards.
Okay. Telltale Heart.
Telltale Heart, indeed. My thinking though, apart from the exploration, is that the animation is phenomenal. I love like all the different guns and the way they shoot. It's almost, I brought up Ratchet and Clank earlier in this podcast. Some of the weapon design and the way that it works reminds me of Ratchet and Clank a little bit, where the weapons just are pretty outrageous. Yeah. Some of like the bigger weapons, the bigger explosions feel like way too overpowered
100%.
In a good way, where it's like, oh, I have 6 of these. Like I almost don't want to use them because it's overkill anytime you're going to, and that adds an element of fun to it. Did you find much of a difference between your memory of Earthworm Jim 1 in terms of the mechanics and gameplay compared to Earthworm Jim 2?
It's just expanded. It's just expanded in almost every way possible. There's also a very like Guardians of the Galaxy element to this, where things are weird. The guns, the colors, everything is just like there is not a wasted spot on the screen.
Yes.
At every opportunity, it's like, oh yeah, put windows in the back. Of that. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I couldn't get over. It just feels expanded. It just feels it's number 2. Like it's supposed to feel like this. It's a sequel, and they took what was good about it. And there's a lot of like pretty tight controls. Like I have no issue the way Earthworm Jim controls inside of the environment.
Right.
Sometimes the environment and him interacting is a little bit of an issue.
It's a little bit weird.
But I don't mind
him grabbing onto ledges.
which is a big element of this game.
Yeah.
I don't mind him the actual controls. I never felt like I was like, oh, I pressed that. Get out of here, which, is a big issue, especially at that time. So I just, that and the diversity of levels I want to get into.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because, you mentioned, pressing the wrong button or falling. There's very little fall damage. Like I don't think at any point we fell into a cavern and died because of it.
Right.
It's very forgiving when you miss the jumps, which kind of lends itself more to that sort of flowy sort of nature of the mechanics. Doesn't feel as tight as Mario, but it's not as punishing as Mario. And I think that goes a long way.
And it's trying to do way more than Mario.
Yes.
You know, all these different types of guns and like whips and...
I don't know. At some point, Mario ends up in the intestines of a living creature dressed as a salamander and is going to be bouncing off of...
No, that's not Mario. That's Earthworm Jim 2.
You know what?
Yeah.
Oh, mea culpa.
Yeah. This is
I
on
apologize.
You. Who's a goose?
I always get these two games mixed up.
Yeah, they're so similar. Oh, absolutely.
Earthworm Jim, that's Luigi, right?
Yes. Wouldn't that be great if this is his side story?
Yes.
Is he's doing stuff like this that shows up for Mario and they're like, we're going to stomp on some turtles. You're like, oh, okay. Oh, that's all we're doing? Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Oh, okay, let's do it.
You brought up the level variation.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So the first level is what I would say their standard level,
right?
Which, is for most games kind of weird. There's many different angles, a lot of like diagonals you can travel up, and
feels very Earthworm Jim 1.
Well, 100% it is. And you're picking up different types of guns and many different types of enemies. And so nothing is standard, but you're kind of moving up and down, in behind walls, doing things like that. And so you play that and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. All right, got it. Then they move immediately into the next level, and that is the time level with the erosion, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is really cool. So if you weren't watching the gameplay, what happens is there's dirt on the floor and there's dirt on the top, and sometimes they kind of look like hills. You could shoot the dirt and it comes to the bottom, and you are a little bit higher.
Right. So whatever you shoot from the top, the geometry sprinkles down and now gives you a little bit more of a platform to shoot with.
It's crazy. And so you really have to get creative on how you can get to different levels, about finding ways to shoot to get through things. Sometimes you're burrowing holes like an ant farm.
Right.
It's just really cool. And the time limit aspect of it makes you just try and sprint through it as much as possible.
Which I almost feel like the time limit wasn't needed there. I get why it was in a game from 1995. But an incredibly imaginative level.
Yeah.
This one felt like it almost felt like what they would do as one of the last levels as a reward for playing through the game. But it turns out just about every level in this game has a unique element to it. I also understand why they started off with the most generic level, so as not to scare people off.
Yes.
But they really dive right into some really creative elements. This was like what a 2D version of Red Faction would want to be. Like Red Faction wanted those destructible environments. Essentially, the entire playground of this level is destructible. It's like you're making your way up through the mud as a worm would. It's just that you got a gun to help you do it.
Yeah.
That was really neat. The next level after that.
And also I want to say too, is at the end of the first level,
Yes.
the boss fight is there's a goldfish in a bowl.
Oh, so good.
And you just
So good.
You take the fish out of the bowl and you eat it and you're over.
But there's a title card that's like fight, and you're like, shit. Because I think at the end of the first level of Earthworm Jim 1, you did fight like a fish in a bowl in a suit, and it was hard, or like a truck or something like that. I could be misremembering.
No, I think you're right.
But it probably sets up that moment again, and he's like, no, fuck it. I'm not going to kill his destructible, like his car. I'm just going to take him out and eat him.
It was so funny. And then you step in. I can't begin to describe the whimsical nature of this whole thing. And I think the third level is really the encapsulation of that. So in the third level, you are a salamander.
Yes.
This is
Hector Salamander.
Hector Salamander.
Ring that bell.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lola Salamander, it's grandson. Are you watching Better Call Saul?
I know it's back. I haven't seen any of the new episodes yet. I would love to.
2 episodes are out. It's really good. Once again, patreon.com. We'll talk
about that eventually.
We
Yeah,
absolutely will. Is that you go into, and it's essentially a water level.
Yes.
Because you're floating through what looks like kind of like a magic school bus.
Yeah.
Like what teaching you what a red blood cell looks like.
That's a good, what magic school bus would imagine the inside of human body looks like. But for a human body that's been eating pencils and
has windows,
bumpers, has windows, has a house in it.
Yeah. Sheep that are inflatable and explode.
Well, I mean, most bodies do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a very rare disease, but
Yes.
afflicts a bunch of us. And so you're getting through, and you could shoot, but when you shoot, you can't swim.
Yes.
So and also, by the way, have I told you the walls kind of like amoebas and they're eating you? And so you're working your way through level, and I think you did a very good job of that, Mikey.
Thank you so much.
No problem. And then the boss for this level, that you get to the end, is a game show.
It's a game show.
It's a game show, and you get to a booth that says Jim, and you're sitting there and you're answering questions, except the questions don't make any sense and also don't matter.
Right.
And then you get
Like the points in Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Thank you. And you get to the bottom, and then it's a Simon Says-esque. Oh, did we mention it's kind of like a pinball level too?
Yes.
Where you can also bounce off these balls.
It is. Do you understand why we had trouble explaining what
Guys.
this game was? You gotta, if any of them, listen, for $5 a month, you gotta join in to watch just the gameplay of this one, because it's a fucking fever dream. Or if you're listening, you've probably played the game as well, so you know some of what we're talking about. But going back and revisiting it, I didn't remember a lot of what we played.
I'm now just even regurgitating, going like, oh wait, did I not mention there's pinball in this level?
I love the questions though that you get asked in the game
fun.
show. One of them, I remember, the question was answer in the form of a question. And the answers were A, B, and C, yes, no, or maybe. And it's like, what? There is no, what the fuck? That made me laugh. It's good.
No, it's 100%. It was so good. And then you get to a Simon Says level of like repeat the answers, except it doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong.
Yes.
You could just get more points.
Yes.
And then the level ends and the salamander unzips the suit, and it was Earthworm Jim the whole time.
So fucking weird. So weird.
And then it cuts to the cow interstitial where they just go like, give level over.
Yeah.
And the guy's smoking in the background. You're like, what is happening?
It felt like it was just someone opened a door on a group of kids who were making comic books, experimental comic books, and they're like, "Can you put that in a game?" And they're like, "Yes." And you're like, "Great."
Well, or it's like there's like a private invite party that I wasn't supposed to be invited to, and I
Like
walk in.
most parties.
Yeah, well, 1,000%. This is like an Eyes Wide Shut party kind of thing, and I walk in, I'm like, "What's going on here?" They're like, "You're not supposed to be here." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And you just walk out. You're like, "Oh, is this what the dark web is?" I don't even,
Earthworm Jim 2, the dark web of the early 90s. So overall, though, all this came together in what seems like would be a cacophonic mess, but it actually works. I really enjoyed playing through this. Now, I have my issues with the gameplay in terms of like, I'm glad there are way fewer enemies in this game than a lot of platformers.
Yeah.
And I think that's because the game allows you to aim in multi directions. I think it would be 8 directions, like left, up, and then up, left, up, right.
Oh my God.
Right.
Are you okay?
Are
you okay?
But it's not. There are big blind spots in where you can fire, and the enemies are often in those blind spots. So too many of them would have been frustrating. I'm glad they didn't go that route. It's not like a bullet hell game where when you're shooting, it's kind of like leaving a trail, like in Contra, where you can kind of have like a trail to cover off the swath of directions you can't shoot in. But because there weren't that many enemies, even the shooting mechanics, which I think were kind of the worst part about this game, didn't really come into play as much as they could have.
It really didn't. And like, it's only going to expand more with more guns and like kind of, we could have perfected that a little bit more. But, let's just get to it because I want to talk about it.
I'm ready, man.
Okay, so with our retro scores, we both gave 3s. That's a 6 out of 8. Here we go with our modern day scores. And then you got to tell me what we did for Earthworm Jim 1.
100%. We'll look that up.
Okay. I fucking love this game. This game is built for... This game is like absolutely my aesthetic.
Yes.
It is so whimsical in nature. And, I was kind of saying this during the gameplay, but it's worth repeating. There's so much about modern culture where we go, it's random.
Yeah,
it's random. And I
yeah.
hate that it's random for random's sake. You know what I mean? I think it was like the beginning of those Skittles commercials and...
yes.
With the Taste the Rainbow commercials, which the first couple ones were like, oh, that's kind of funny. I remember the guy where he's King Midas, but everything turns to Skittles.
Right.
And he's like, have you not held your child for 2 years? That is so funny to me. But then everyone went, oh, just make it random.
Yes.
It's like, no, there has to be something behind it. And there's a certain amount of trust with creators that you do that with. With this one, even though everything felt so weird and so random, for some reason it felt like it was inside the same world.
Yeah.
Or was trying to push you in different directions.
Right.
And I absolutely adored the aesthetic around this. I think it's so much fun in when everything tries to be like Mario and it tries to be, very linear in its thinking. We don't, in a world where video games can be anything, we constantly stick to the same things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Star Wars has 1 million planets, yet we keep ending up on Tatooine. How the fuck does that keep happening? In this game, it kind of questions why and can expand further. I absolutely loved it. And since the gameplay didn't get in the way, since there wasn't a certain element where you kept dragging and going like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 4.
3.5. I love it. I love what you said about the random nature, because I think that's a key. This could have very easily felt like it was just too random, just pulling from too many places. But this is what I think separates good quote unquote random from bad quote unquote random. And it's that it felt like there was an auteur behind this. Yeah. Like one mind. And it was all from the subconscious of the auteur, but every time it reached back into that bag of the subconscious, it was going back to the same place. It wasn't just pulling from like a bunch of, like, oh, this is like you could have rolled the die and it could have been anything. It was coming from the spark of a creative energy. So it weirdly felt consistent, even though it was jumping all over the place. And I think that's the main thing.
Good way of putting it.
I think the mechanics could have been better. Okay. And that's one of the reasons, maybe one of the only reasons why I'm not giving this a perfect score. Yep. But I agree, everything else just lands. You would have a hard time finding another game like this. And when we talk about, where did this franchise go? Now I wonder more than ever.
Especially if this is the one. Well, I know there's 3D, but especially if this is the one that people are like, I'm not sure anymore. Really?
What? Yeah,
this
exactly.
one?
It's fantastic. It's aged really well. I feel like we have this issue sometimes with games of this era where games journalism is starting to see itself as a serious medium, where I bet you a lot of journalists were hesitant to say a game like this is good because it's so weird and they wanted to mainstreamify games.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe it hurt a little bit from that, but I loved it. I'm giving this one a 3.5 out of 4 as well.
That's great. And it was so funny. Like, I'm now thinking to myself, like, why didn't I give it a 4? And I'm like, and I can't honestly, I don't have a reason. It's not like I'm pointing to something and go like, that's the reason.
Yeah.
Music or something like that. It's just cause.
Yeah.
But, and I'm fine with that. But 3, I can't endorse this strong enough.
It's a great fucking game.
It's a great game.
Boot up your Nintendo Switch if you have it and play this on the Nintendo Switch Online. I always want to call it the Virtual Console because it's an absolute pleasure. An absolute pleasure.
So with a 7 in our modern scores, that's a 13 out of 16. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
What's the deal? So that's 13 out of 16 for Earthworm Jim 2. Man, That was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
That is so good. And I'm so excited to see what awards this game is going to win.
Well, there's only one way to find out,
how's
Andrew.
that,
Let's
Mikey?
make our way over to the awards ceremony. We got to pass through the red carpet.
Okay.
So let's let the band warm us up and have
Pass
us
through it. We're like skipping over it. Ooh, it's lava. It's lava.
When it comes to avoiding the paparazzi, that's what it feels like sometimes.
Oh, boy.
Let's let the paparazzi, led by Todd Snap, take us away.
You've been waiting for it all year. The most glamorous award ceremony of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, the Grady's.
Wow. Okay. Todd's on fire today.
Todd.
He's literally on fire. Someone's going to have to help him.
Todd, Hot Shot Snaps.
Todd Hotshot Snaps. He needs another nickname on top of Todd Snap, even though that's not his nickname. It's his birth name.
It's his birth name. He comes from a long line of snaps. How dare you?
Well, Elliot comes in.
Yes.
In a spacesuit.
Yep.
But he's just as jacked as the spacesuit.
He really
that
is.
works for
you
you,
fill it
Elliot.
out a lot better than Jim does.
But he's got a worm in his mouth, and that's awkward. Has that worm always been... Elliot, excuse me. Elliot, I got a question. Over here. Your bosses.
Over here.
Elliot. Oh, hey, there. Hey, Elliot. Has that worm in your mouth always been controlling you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it has.
So
That
Elliot
makes
is
sense.
the worm. That makes a lot of sense.
He's got the brain of a worm.
Brand of a worm indeed. He's just a sniveling little bitch.
Oh my God, are you going to take that?
Yep,
he's
he
going
is,
to
'cause
take it.
he's a sniveling little
take
bitch.
it. Okay.
So now we got to find out the awards. Elliot, why don't you reach, or your worm, reach into that spacesuit pocket of yours, because all spacesuits have pockets.
Spacesuits have tons of pockets. They're
Tons
like
of
cargo
pockets.
shorts.
Exactly.
They're the cargo shorts of suits.
Old men wear two things: cargo shorts and spacesuits. With high white socks all the way up to their ankles.
I just imagine the astronauts come off the space station. Like, you've been living there for 2 years. They're like, yeah. I'm like, I really miss my cargo shorts.
All right, Elliot, why don't you read off the awards that this game won? He fits like an old glove compartment.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
And the wine cellar.
Ooh, you're so fancy.
Don't mind if I do.
What is this every time with the wine?
Ooh, a Gamay Noir from France. Skin contact, something I haven't had in quite a while.
I'm so jealous of my wine. It's had skin contact.
I love the wine cellar. That's
Wine cellar.
My favorite award that we give out, just because it's a score that's higher in the modern age than it was in the retro score.
Yeah.
It shows that the game has aged better for us than when it first came out. Fantastic, but also the fits like an old glove compartment, where the current score is above a 7.
Yep.
And it fits like an old glove
It
compartment
does.
indeed.
Honestly, it fits as well as that spacesuit on Elliot. You know,
exactly.
So there's a lot of good things to be said about this game, and I'm glad it's getting 2 of our better awards.
Is it above a 7?
No.
No, it's a 7 or higher.
Yeah. So it's in the modern day, it was a 7.
It was a 7.
Yeah, it was 2 3.5.
That's
it's a
good.
7. Yeah.
That's good.
Oh yeah. Okay, good. Mikey's just double checking my work. This is why the teacher asks you to show your work sometimes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Man, there's so much to be said about this game.
Yes.
And and even though we
one of those things, it's good.
it's good.
Another one of those things, so random.
So random.
Another one of those things. Can we have sir, may I have another?
Yeah. There's a certain element of like old animation that
Yes.
really looks really good because they filmed it on
Like
film,
hand-drawn
right?
and-
Yeah, and
yeah.
so their slides are moving and they're filming it on film. So now in modern day, it looks amazing, right? So especially like the 50s and 60s, some of the old Looney Tunes stuff,
Sure.
which is really comparable to what we're seeing in this
Honestly.
one. This is a style that is like, frozen in carbonite,
Yes.
that is just, that you could still look back and go, wait, that looks really good. Instead, it was 2 years removed in the future of looking really shitty.
100%.
You know?
And Genesis had, and I know we played this on the Super Nintendo, but the Genesis especially just had such a crazy color palette to it. Some of those games look very hand drawn, and this was no exception. Just a delight to play.
What a
this
hell
game.
of a game. I have so much fun. I've been thinking about this one for a long time.
Yeah, same.
Oh man. So go back and play it. You can now play it. So, please let us know what you think about Earthworm Jim 2.
And Mr. Tallarico, give us Earthworm Jim 4.
Yeah, what are we doing? I want this
that
game.
man.
Give me that game.
Give me that game.
So, thank you so much for listening. We love every single one of you, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. My name's Andrew Bascom, and with me as always is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mikey Aaronworth.
This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over. Want more Retrograde in your life? You can visit our website for show notes at theretrogradepod.com. Follow us on Twitter at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, and the podcast at Retrograde Pod.
Or Instagram at the Retrograde Podcast.
For bonus episodes, check us out at patreon.com/theretrograde podcast.
Send your questions and business inquiries to the retrogradepodcast@gmail.com.
See you next week, D-pads.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
I thought it was best. I didn't say anything at all. I don't trust myself.